Budapest is very, what's the word that you are using all the time for Budapest?
Exotic.
We thought that we want to have this cinematic big screen experience because these speakers, they require the attention.
And the whole thing really felt like an invitation for a nice weekend or a week in Budapest.
We always enjoy talking to people and somehow always great things comes out in the end.
That's one of the goals of this whole thing, that we put Budapest on the map.
I love math.
Yeah, well, if it's the math for Boldi, it's the mess for me.
Welcome to Vienna Design Hour. I'm Stefan Göschel, and in this podcast, I talk with creative minds from various disciplines about their work and perspectives on design. In today's episode, I'm joined by Mátyás Czél and Boldizsár Mátyás, the two founders of POV Budapest. Point of View is a conference for visual practices that had its debut last year and will return for its second edition from September 11th to 12th. As if organizing a conference wasn't enough work, Matyas also runs his design studio CM.SUPPLY, and Boldi is the co-founder and creative director of COMET. We talked about why most of last year's attendees came from outside Hungary, how to win over skeptics, and the exotic allure of Budapest. I hope you enjoy this episode. I would like to start with your backgrounds before the festival. Can you tell us both about your backgrounds a little bit, where you come from, what you do?
Yeah, I am generally from the northeastern town of like post-industrial kind of Hungarian Detroit, Miskolc city, and I did there. I'm more like an art background, elementary education. And I got from there to the Budapest Mohyly Nagy University of Design. And throughout these university years, I was able to get some experience, mostly in advertising, which was on the long term not really satisfying. And I needed some maybe more specific skill sets, and I got into Central St. Martin's in London after the university in Budapest. And throughout those years, it was like eye-opening that there is a scene out there of like studios and design culture and all of these. So I started to work with studios also back and forth between London and Rotterdam, also in London, and then after years also spent some time here in Vienna working for Bleed, Moodly, and also having a nice circle of friends here in Vienna still.
How did you end up in Vienna in the first place?
Yeah, it was kind of the halfway between going home. It was like the last stop before you actually go proper east.
So you had to change on the train, and then you thought, let's have a look at the city and the studios.
Yeah, it's just convenient. No, I think it's the first stop, and sometimes we think about it in a way that Vienna is basically where the West really ends, and something different starts. And yeah, probably that's one of the topics of today's conversation. That's something we would like to change.
Sure.
I'm born in Győr, which is quite close to the Austrian border. And I studied art throughout my whole life, basically. And then I went to the university, Mohyly Nagy Art University, MOME, where Matyas also studied. And basically, during the art university, I started my own company, a studio. Back then, it was named as Smart Studio, and then we rebranded it, and now it's COMET. Basically, that was my first job, real job. And, I founded that with 3 other guys. And since 2017, we are building the studio, and now it's almost a 30-person team. and we are blending technology and design and creating brand experiences across different channels.
Where did you guys meet before you started the POV festival?
Like exactly 1 year before.
Yeah.
Really? And just by coincidence, or was there any project you did together?
A funny coincidence. Actually, my senior designer and Boldi, they are a couple, so they kind of raised the attention
Okay.
between the two studios.
So it's a very fortunate meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I was following Matyas and his work. Probably, I mean, Matyas doesn't really like to hear that, but I admired his work. I think in Hungary is one of the greatest designers. So, he was on my radar for sure. And also we had this opportunity to have a talk together in a small networking event called UX Budapest. So we met there and did this presentation on the importance of visual culture, basically, and how it's missing from that kind of part of the design phase or work. So that was, I think, the first physical interaction where we actually met.
You guessed my next question, because I wanted to talk about when the first spark of an idea for the festival started. How did you come up with the topic in the first talk you did together or in this event? Because it's basically the same vision you have for the POV conference, right?
Yeah.
So it started very early.
Yeah, I mean, we saw and still see that it's something that's missing a lot in the Hungarian design culture, or like the current state of the Hungarian design community. So I think that was the key thing to show these UX designers and UI designers and other people as well in that scene, that bringing that contemporary touch to work, to UX as well, and to UI. It's very important.
Yeah, it was, I think the main topic was this like gray areas between kind of more classic graphic design backgrounds and more like UI, UX and tech worlds. And we were approaching that topic from, coming from probably my background more from the graphic design and motion design and that kind of scene, while Boldi and the whole studio from like really proper UI, UX and design systems. And I guess we generally have, both of us, view that this should be more coherent and more holistic way of thinking. But we are still kind of coming from a little bit different directions into that. And I think it was a nice reflection point at this kind of small talk where we approached the funny also prejudices of these two worlds.
I wanted to talk about also the creative scene in Budapest, for example, or Hungary, if you want to. The two of you had each other in sight and you followed each other's work. Is it a small community that everybody knows everybody, or how would you describe it from your point of view?
I think it changed quite a lot in the last 2-3 years because of Instagram, and you see lots of things which you cannot really assign to actual human beings. So that makes it a bit more difficult. Before that, there were a few, of course, legacy figures, and there are generations, so you could maybe like separate through that. And we more or less aware of the ones who had, the same university background maybe. So we were at least friends of friends. But now it's really difficult to see it through. And I don't think there is like a sense of community really.
So there are no events or something like that where people can meet?
Of course, we have events like networking events and awards and stuff like that, but it's not that great overall, I would say. And very few people are attending because it's just not interesting and engaging, and that you won't meet any new people there. So it's the same crew all the time. And after a certain point, it becomes very, boring overall. So I think that's the key issue, that something was clearly missing, and we wanted to, fill this gap.
I'm curious, would you say in the creative or in the design bubble in Budapest, what is the most dominant discipline within the design field?
I mean, I think Hungary generally has a really strong film and photography heritage. So that is for sure that we have a lot of photographers, lots of filmmakers, and also the international film industry, because of mostly financial reasons, are booming in Budapest. So I think that's definitely the peak point.
I don't think so. We have like a studio culture like here. So it's really different. In Hungary, the numbers of studios are, very few compared to Vienna, for instance. And somehow this area or scene is not very seen by others. It's kind of hidden, and you never know what they are working on, or like it's not that. It seems it's not that important in Hungary, that whole scene, like in other cities or countries that we have visited or had experience with.
Did you also try it with your studios before you started the conference? Did you do any events or networking parties probably, or did you do any talks apart from the one we talked about before?
Not that many, personally. My studio is very young, so it's for me the whole kind of conscious studio building is quite a new thing. It's more like a organic kind of development from being a freelancer into building a studio and like hiring people and like learning throughout the process how to do this, all the project management and stuff. So it's not something which I was consciously really doing. Connected to, St. Martin's, for instance, in London, I was giving short talks and maybe podcasts, and that's it. But no, not much of a huge experience in that.
But you brought the international perspective back to your practice, and you wanted to go abroad again with the festival, right? So you saw the need for bringing in people from abroad to Budapest, as I said before. That's not only the same people all over again, but to bring fresh ideas, fresh perspectives. That's important for you, right?
Exactly. I think for us, actually, even to compared to Vienna or maybe the Austrian scene, I think we are much more kind of obliged to go international because of the language is very limiting our abilities if you are only focusing on the local market, not even talking about the size of the Hungarian market. But, when you are in the DACH region, you kind of already have an established huge market speaking the same language, somewhat sharing very similar cultures. So for us, I think it's a no-brainer that we go international. There's like literally no other way.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that that the market size in Hungary for this kind of conference is very, very limited. So that was the first idea to, try to convince as many foreigners as possible to join the conference. And also we thought that not just the market, but also the knowledge about visual culture overall. It's not there where it should be. Yeah. And maybe people are just not interested in this conference. And we kind of still feel that, sadly, and we try to change that because, only like the 30% of the attendees were Hungarians, which is quite sad in a way. Because the vision and the goal is to educate people on visual culture and try to change something in Budapest and overall in Hungary in that topic.
So am I right when I suppose that building a community in Hungary and in Budapest was important for you, but it's a challenge as well?
Absolutely. It's a big challenge. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting because I thought maybe I'm too naive, but I always think that if you start something interesting, people will come naturally. But it's hard work actually, right?
I guess if it would be free.
Okay. Yeah, the free culture is a problem as well. I think,
Yeah.
To do a conference, was it clear from the start for you? Or did you think about any other formats and events?
I think it was quite clear, to be honest. Probably because of our experiences with different design conferences in Vienna or in Bratislava. And we thought that we want to have this cinematic big screen experience because these speakers are just, they require the attention. And it also, made us clear that we want one stage and the focus to these speakers. And we also try to announce them and showcase them as superstars as we saw them.
Yeah. I want to mention it, but I don't really have to mention it. The look and feel of the conference was amazing. And also the lineup. Can you tell us a little bit how you managed to convince for the first edition so many big names? Because it felt like you were there for 10 years. Other festivals maybe need a couple of years and a couple of editions to have this kind of lineup, but you managed it with the debut of the conference. Do you have any insights into that?
It's more like the starting point is more, I think anyone who wants to do something like this, it's your personal network. And generally we like, this guest-taking experience. And for us, it was finally a very good occasion to invite people who we worked with in the industry. There were many studios who I worked with or collaborated with, who I was finally able to, invite into the city, which I call my home. And the whole thing really felt like an invitation for a nice a weekend or a week in Budapest to meet and have fun, really. So the first names were secured, I think the 3, 4, and all the others were coming by themselves, like a domino effect. Basically.
Okay, cool. And would you say that, as you mentioned, the city, because you integrated it very well in the program, you had tours and also guides. So do you think this was also a reason for people to come, because it's not the obvious city for a design conference, probably?
Absolutely. We try to, frame it as a Budapest experience. And also because we thought that, and of course we were targeting like international audience, as I mentioned, and we thought that they're gonna spend more days here, not just staying here for 2 years or something for the conference. So we wanted to make sure that they have the greatest experience throughout the week. So that's why we created this Budapest guide map and organized design walks as well. So that was the reason to showcase Budapest in a way how we both see it and experience it.
Yeah. Were you welcomed by the city? Did you approach the city department with the festival, because you're making great advertisement? Were you welcomed and greeted with open arms?
Yeah, well, in Hungary things works differently.
It's still in progress.
Okay. So you did it all by yourself without the help of the city
the first
tourism
year,
department?
This year we are really trying, but the first year, probably we're gonna talk about sponsors later maybe, but with Hungarian sponsors, it was quite challenging because we only had the concept and it was really hard to sell, to be honest. So without an existing conference, without numbers, Hungarian sponsors were not really interested. And now they see numbers and now they are like in lines, I would say.
You mentioned that only 30% of the attendees were Hungarian. Which other countries attended your festival?
Yeah, the second country was the United States. Then we had Austria, Germany, the United Kingdom, and we had all together from 46 different countries.
Wow, that's impressive. How has your vision evolved from the first festival? Because you went into it and it was a big success. Which kind of changes did you do for the second edition? Or are you just evolving naturally in the same direction?
Well, there is a little bit of a change in terms of the curation of the speakers. Therefore, also the concept, and it's a thin line. we would like to keep aligned to the audience which we already established, which was very much identity design driven. So that's still the lenses which we see this whole conference through, but it was conscious that we call it a conference for visual practices and not like a design conference or whatnot. It's evolving now maybe a bit towards the creators, designers, founders who are using design in their process to establish business, establish companies, work inside of the fabric of those companies and change it from within and not really from this kind of classic agency studio client relationship, but more like from a proactive way of doing things.
I've got the impression that the first names of the new lineup are almost like more like platforms as well than what you just said.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting approach, I think. And it also leads me to the next question. Maybe we can combine it. How do you aim to differentiate your conference to other festivals and conferences in the same field?
Well, I'm not sure if I have to do that, on purpose or something like that. It's just naturally different because of the lineup, I would say, because of the location, of course. Budapest is very, what's the word that you are using all the time for Budapest?
Exotic.
That's nice.
Budapest is very exotic. It's worth to visit, worth to explore, because there are a lot of hidden gems there.
I see it the same way you just mentioned, but I thought maybe you have some
I
other
think
angle.
it's also very personal, to be honest. So our souls are really into that. We are managing the content on social media. We are on site. We are, making sure that everything runs smoothly. And it gives itself into a very personal touch that people appreciate. And also, we are really focusing on creating a very great hosting experience for the speakers as well.
Yeah, I think probably for me the most interesting insight was, and that's what I've heard back from many people, that it felt like that they are, almost experiencing a hospitality experience, and it's almost like you are being in someone's living room when you enter the conference. So the whole thing kind of felt very personal. Maybe, one part of that is the actual location, which really feels like a huge living room with those big windows and the wooden surfaces. But I think it's just the fact that we do it in a very personal way. And I think that's necessary to do not just a conference, but any kind of venture nowadays, when everybody just want to, exit as soon as possible, make passive income, do drop shipping and another pizza shop, whatever. That I think it doesn't work that way. Some things just don't turn on if you are not fully embedded and motivated to do something.
Just one more thought that just came into my mind, that huge differentiation, I think, that our speakers are stayed there for the whole 2 days or even 3 and with the after party. So here you were able to have a drink with them. It was just another level. It was pretty surreal. They were actually attendees during the 2 days, so it felt like a very great experience.
I guess it was a nice change to see the local community with these international designers and stars in the scene mixed in your city.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree 100% that I think it's all about the personal approach and the personal commitment to it. I think this differentiates everything from everything. So if you're committed 100% and you bring your own style into it, I think it's different from the start, and it's very important, as you say, for the atmosphere. And I think that's what it should be about if you do a conference, to have an atmosphere that you cannot recreate online or that you want to attend. I think that's very important. I want to talk about partnerships. You brought a brand identity on board pretty early. How did this come about?
We were anyways in contact because one of our studio feature, and it was frankly a very direct and simple question. Like, we are building this, are you on board? And shout out to Elliot. They were very, very, very open from the beginning. Like, yeah, let's do this. And then a few talks later, we were partners in crime.
That's also how I personally got to know about it, because I think they, like an article or something, or published on Instagram. Do you think that helped a lot for the first edition?
Of course. I mean, without them, it wouldn't even possible to, reach that kind of audience. So huge thanks to Elliot and the brand identity team for sure. I mean, Also, just wanted that Elliot also mentioned that a lot of other conferences are trying to get in their doors
afterwards, after your success.
Before
as
that,
well. Okay.
Before that, but somehow he felt that this one is the right choice or option, because we had this very well prepared pitch deck and everything, and the concept, and of course the speakers itself kind of sold the concept.
Perfect. You had some quite big names in the scene. How do you think about emerging voices in the local scene? Do you want to integrate them in one way or push them? Do you think it can work to have like the big names helping the local ones in the future?
I think that's the most difficult question, actually. That's what we are trying to reapproach again and again, because we are still in the phase of like legitimizing this event.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy task. We are now discussing that maybe our smaller stage will welcome more and more local ones, or we do some local studio activation, something throughout the city that week. So we have ideas. It's not yet fully figured out, but it's definitely the aim. Like that's one of the goal of this whole thing, that we put Budapest on the map, not only from the outside, but also for the local scene to be more encouraged to take part in international projects. And I think they are good enough, honestly. It's just that, but you can somehow already see, I think. The reason that we see more and more going public and talking more consciously about what are they doing, calling themselves studios, even if it's like not that definition yet. I think that's very, very nice to see.
I think it's an interesting question, because I like to ask people who really deal with it. So if you say it's a very challenging task to do, I think that's interesting, because you always imagine that you bring in some stars and everything comes naturally, but also every aspect is hard work, I believe. You started the POV Dinner Club as well. Is this something that aims to be present within the city during the year when there's no festival? Or what was the idea behind it? What do you want to tell us about
absolutely.
it?
Actually, the first one was last Tuesday, so it's quite fresh.
Yeah.
And happy to announce that we're gonna bring the next ones to Bratislava and Vienna as well. So that's the aim, to connect with other foreigners throughout this kind of dinner concept. But answering to that question, yes. So we are planning to do that in like every 2 months or 3 months or something, because we also have a very key figure in our team called Belian, who is managing a lot of things in this whole POV Budapest project, and also he's a chef. And we both really like cooking and everything around it. Matyas also has a restaurant in his hometown, or
yeah, but there's nothing to do with this.
Yeah, but like hospitality is kind of in our veins somehow, I feel like. But Belian is the one who is driving this for sure. And I'm really into food overall. So I just had the thought that maybe we could do something about it. So we just put together the concept and then, try to organize these dinners. And we got like 100 joiners to the wait list for the very first edition. And we just picked like 25 or something. And we hosted this dinner, and it felt amazing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Real connections and networking in these kind of circumstances are just very natural and uplifting.
That's why I asked before if you were from the start aiming for a conference format, or did you think about any other formats? Did the POV Dinner Club idea come afterwards, or did you have it before and you said, let's start with the festival, the conference, and then do something else?
It came afterwards, and I think it serves a bit of a different purpose as well. So I don't think it's possible to have the same audience there. In my opinion, that's more like building a real kind of backcountry for the for the event in terms of, sponsors, partners, and generally anyone who feels the same way, that you put your personality and your just personal motivations into your business ventures or just hobbies, whatever. I think that everyone who was sitting at the table at our last event felt that way, or at least that's how I felt, that they are from the same mindset. And I think that really establishes community who we can build on in the future, and lots of partnerships are working out this way much better and much easier if you had this like interaction and motivations are there from both sides.
Yeah, it's even more personal than the conference.
Yeah,
because you have more time and you can talk to the people.
Yeah. And also we are currently working on a concept called POV ecosystem. I'm not gonna go into very details yet, but the key thing is right now we are building this kind of community, and the aim is to add more values into this, like putting new bricks into this whole system, let's say. So we are thinking about, maybe bringing POV Budapest to other cities, and just using some studio assets and already developed assets that we have, and just put that into this system and create a whole ecosystem that could support creatives and designers and generally everyone who is interested in visual culture in very different ways. Yeah.
Did you have any partners, sponsors, or attendees at the dinner club that are from outside of the creative scene or the design scene?
They are somewhat related. As we said, it's not much of a so-called design scene just yet. But I think, as I said, most of those attendees, the sponsors and partners had very similar mindsets. Like they are generally interested in visual culture. They want to, stay true to their own ideas, even though they are not necessarily founders or maybe not even necessarily C-level. But somehow they feel that what they do at these companies are valuable, and also they are doing it in a way that it looks beautiful.
For me, that's an extraordinary thing to have people with different mindsets and different backgrounds finding a common topic within the visual field. I think it would be different in Austria, I have the impression.
Why?
So if you talk to companies, they want to have a very nice solution, maybe a not so expensive solution, but to go this one step further is very difficult to convince them. And as I understand your description of it, you find a common topic where there's people interested in this visual approach and in the visual outcome and in a kind of design culture or awareness. And I see it the other way around in Vienna, actually.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same in Hungary as well. We just found those individuals who are like us, trying to make some kind of a change in their fields. But maybe they still don't have the money or the assets or everything. So
it's many times actually this new concept of collaboration, which you hear in cold mails sometimes, and some one who is reaching out implying that that would actually be a project where you would pay them to do something. But many times it's like you search for possibilities how to do good barter deals, really. And collaboration is a next level partnership, basically, when we have all of these platforms out there, everybody is communicating, targeting people, and we find ways where we can, share some values.
Yeah, basically we are offering physical connection to the people, and these forward-thinking brands really understand that they need it, because there is a huge mess out there, of course, on Instagram and everywhere. So brands or forward-thinking brands are really focusing on events and physical activation and everything. And basically they, generate content in these events or those events, and then they use FOMO effect, and they also, use that content online then after that.
Speaking of networks, you joined the Eastern European Design Network. I read on Instagram. That sounds interesting. As you said before, it's Vienna is the last city of the Western world. How would you describe the Eastern European Design Network? What is it about, and who's a member?
There is a very specific feeling to be from the East, so it's very difficult to share it for you guys here.
Please try.
But I think that's how it feels to meet with those people in the network. It was basically René. Shout out to René. He was coming to our studio in Budapest and invited to go to Vilnius and also to Warsaw to take part of these events. And we met all of these people who we otherwise would have not ever met. And of course, there were some people from Western Europe as well, like, for example, from the Slanted magazine and publishings, but a lot from, like, Romania, Croatia, Georgia, so Ukraine. Like, it was a very different vibe, but also a very familiar vibe. So when you meet with these founders or, like, network organizers, because they are all respective network organizers in their home country who take part in this. So it's not really like the collaboration of designers, although they are designers most of the cases, but they are actually kind of organizing community. And they do that in their respective countries, and then this network is bringing them together. So it's more like a decentralized kind of organization, which is not yet fully set out how gonna scale. But that was one of the reasons why we met in the last occasion to discuss where could this go. There were ideas about, like, making an Eastern European Design Museum, or making this community gathering more often, make it a bit like the European Design Awards, like changing cities every year. So, by the way, they were also there from Greece. So that takes part in that as well.
Were there other festivals attending, or was it just local networks? Can you say some names we could Google maybe? Some interesting
that's a bit difficult for me, but I encourage anyone to just visit the Network Eastern European Design website and check everyone who is taking part in that, and follow them. And
that's what I thought is interesting about it, because of course I went immediately to the website and I checked out the Instagram. It's another way, or a great initiative that showcases what's going on in the East, because, as I mentioned before, in my experience and in my opinion, there's not so much media coverage of the Eastern countries and their scenes and festivals. Am I wrong? Are there any initiatives I don't know about that's crossing the imaginary line of East and West?
Everything is just very DIY. Like, there is no such a scheme as taken as granted in most Western countries, that you have the funding, you know where to turn to, how the application goes. Even if it's a bit more bureaucratic sometimes, that you know that you can get it if you have a good concept. Here, everybody is just doing as a passion project. And that's what also gives its really personal vibe to it.
Yeah. Boldi, you mentioned before that we might talk about sponsors or something like that. Do you remember what you meant before? Do you want to add something about that? Because, of course, if it's DIY, you still need some money and financing to do what you're doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, from last year, the Vice story is one of the greatest that we probably read that in other interviews as well, but I really like the story. I think we just published the first few names, probably like 4, 6 something. And then on Instagram, Kota Kobayashi from Vice team just DM'd us. And like 2 weeks later, we had this deal with them, and they brought in Ragged Edge as well. And they had this amazing presentation on site. So it was an amazing collaboration, and they were very open to everything, and they are the nicest people.
Great. Are there any no-goes for you in a festival? Because we talked about what you're aiming for, what you're providing for the festival, but did you experience some things when you were attending festivals before that you said, this should never happen at the festival?
Roll-ups.
Yeah, a lot of things actually. I think we have a whole list about that in our minds. What we tried is to have a huge control over everything. So we over-organize everything. It went in Notion, and we had all the information there with automatizations, with the greatest possible project management, because we were very few people working on this project, and we had to do it in a very efficient way. So we used a lot of tools to organize stuff, and we had everything under control, I would say. Of course, we had issues, and for instance, the online part, the streaming was very bad, thanks to Zoom. But this year we're gonna change that as well. So that was a huge issue that we are trying to avoid this year. And also, I wanted to mention earlier as well that we had this post-event survey because we're really trying to make a conference which is very iterative in a way. That's how we build products as well in our studios. We listen to the user feedbacks, to attendee feedbacks, and we change those things. So we have a huge list. Actually, I think we published that on Instagram as well, that what we're gonna change. For instance, this year we have this student ticket option. So we're really trying to learn from our mistakes and also from other mistakes as well.
Great. Of course, you have to come back to your professions and work apart from the festival. How do you manage to do both?
Well, actually, the conference gives us some work to do throughout the studio, so you can take that as a good thing. It supplies us with a constant flow of projects. We just have to find a way to have a good financial balance between the two organizations, or three actually. But we are constantly working inside of the studio environment. So even when we do the conference, that's coming from that point of view. That's something which is much more difficult to do actually. So we many times joke that it would be so much easier to do the sales, for example, for POV or any kind of products or spin-offs which we are doing, because it's tangible. But growing your own studio is not. That's probably the most difficult.
With my case or our case at COMET, the last year was very brutal in a lot of ways, financially and project-wise and everything. And of course, we had to put together POV Budapest, and it was the first ever conference or huge event that we made. So, this year's challenge was to change a lot of things in that as well, project management-wise, to make it even more efficient. But back to the studio stories, that with this kind of changes in project management, we are able to have more focus on the studio work as well. And in our own studio, we changed a lot in the team as well. So I'm really thankful to everyone there who is like managing the people there and the projects and everything. So now it kind of runs smoothly, and I can focus on sales for the studio and for the conference, and it helps a lot that I don't have to design, for instance, anymore, or manage projects.
That's what I wanted to ask as well. What did you learn from the festival? Because I imagine you learned a lot by this side project, so to speak, that goes back into the studio life, right?
Yes. For our studio, it's the importance of building standalone projects and new ventures and companies, really. Like when you have your, sometimes these empty, unbooked times, we always try to push our own projects, like products actually, and hopefully we are rolling out a few new things in the let's say next 6 months-ish. So all these things make you more confident that you are not dependent on client money most of the time.
Yeah. To me, well, it's interesting because on the first year, of course, I brought a lot of experience and knowledge from the studios to the POV Budapest. And I think it's still the case mostly. But I brought back new things as well. For instance, that it's very interesting to see that we are able to reach globally now, like, and connect with these huge brands. It was not a reality before that. Mátyás' studio, they work for international brands mostly, but COMET was really relying on local ones. And now with the help of the conference and with this kind of background behind me and us, we are able to go for bigger brands.
With your knowledge and your eyes open for the studios and for the festival, what are some of the trends you're seeing in the creative scene globally?
Well, I have a quick answer, but I think it's already happening for a long time now. But that the more agile and smaller studios are taking the place over marketing firms and agencies. And that's what we are also trying to do in Hungary. And that's why we have invited all of these speakers, because we think that these are the companies and the studios who are really forming the new wave of visual culture all around the world.
Yeah, and thanks to, of course, new tools, it's actually possible to work for really big projects, big clients on a small scale. So I think that's an important realization. Of course, there is the sales between you as a small studio and the big client. But I think the big clients should really realize the importance and the possibilities there. And if that starts to happen, that generally, I think, is good for the whole scene, because we have a more decentralized sort of network, and also the way how things communicate to local people is more relevant. You don't have these monolithic structures of one Central European advertising agency translating everything to weird accents.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have recurring questions in the podcast. Do you have any media tips that inspired your professional life?
Yeah, a lot, of course. But for me, which is recurring, and for me, every time is a pleasure, is watching Paolo Sorrentino. It's, my wife, for example, she doesn't really like it. She doesn't get it. Why is it like, so long? Why we are watching all these, images for so long, and it doesn't really come together as a plot. And we always have this discussion that, so what was it about? Or, kind of, let's take away the morale or something. And I really love this kind of work where you start to deconstruct it and then it just falls apart. And that kind of qualifies the medium itself. That's really nice, I think.
I can agree on that.
Yeah, I was actually thinking a lot about this question. I try to figure out what inspired me the most, and I'm not able to pick a book or a movie, but I will pick Lego. Yeah, because throughout my childhood, I was playing with Lego a lot, and I feel like it really formed how I design things and how I try to, educate our teammates on how they should do design. I'm really structure focused, and I feel like if you have the right bricks and the right methods, then it just show the issues overall when you put together things. So that's how we build products at COMET, and I'm really relying on these kind of systems.
Then I also have a second question, the event tip. Apart from the very nice conference that you're doing, which you can talk about, of course, is there anything that you attended or that's coming up that you're looking forward to? I mean, was there any exhibition that you saw in your life?
Maybe the Milano Design Week, right?
We are going to Milan in a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
But also on the south, there are interesting things in the Balkans. For me, it was a very inspiring experience to be at Redo conference. I hope that it's still happening this year. It was sometimes not clear because of the COVID times. But again, a shout out now to Boldi, who is doing that in Pristina, in Kosovo. I think he worked for Dumbar and then kind of tried to bring back the whole thing and all this scene to Kosovo. We really enjoyed it. That actually inspired us quite a lot to have this more like a city experience, to explore spaces. You are there in a, again, exotic environment, and you are kind of with the map hanging around and just finding yourself things. That's a true discovery.
Sounds great.
And also one more thing that, as mentioned, we are planning to organize a POV dinner club here in Vienna as well.
Do you want to talk about it already? I had the impression that you're not disclosing too much right now, but you can...
you know, we don't really have a specific date in mind, but we're gonna just, roll out the idea of it, and we really try to connect with new people, and we want people to join the waitlist. So yeah, that's an important message.
If someone has like a good space or has something in mind or anything connected to this concept, just hit us up.
Yeah, I think we are really into collaborations, to be honest. We always enjoy talking to people and just putting together that we both have, and somehow all these great things comes out in the end.
Perfect. I totally agree. And the last question I have is also a very difficult one, but I'm also interested. Do you see any personal design principles that come up often in your work and your practice? Is there some patterns that you notice in yourselves?
Yeah, I think I might mix the previous questions and kind of answer that here or there. I really think, I'm relying on structures, and I'm trying to convince everyone that they should as well, because I see a lot of issues which directed me back to inconsistencies. So yeah, I'm really trying to push or put everything into a system and rely on that, and use a lot of math in design.
The math was the reason why I dropped out of the architectural profession.
Yeah, well, if it's the math for Boldi, it's the mess for me.
Are you a messy designer?
I am.
Great answer. Mátyás, Boldi, thank you very much for the conversation, for coming to Vienna.
Thank you for having us, yeah.
This was the 11th episode of Vienna Design Hour. Thank you for listening. Make sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or YouTube so you don't miss any new episodes. Vienna Design Hour is produced by Cincin Creative Studios. A big thank you to Harald Allacher for post-production and mastering, and to Be Visible for the music.